Have you ever wished that you could just ask your higher self a simple question and get a clear answer without overthinking it or second guessing things? So many of us feel like our higher self is trying to give us guidance, but we don't always trust the information we're receiving. So, in this video, I'll be sharing a few really simple ways that you can learn to start asking your higher self yes or no questions and begin to recognize how your body is already showing you those answers. In the last video, I talked about how your higher self communicates with you through subtle pulls, synchronicities, and even discomfort. But once you start noticing those things, you may wonder, how do I actually work with this? How do you ask for clarity and receive it in a way that's easy to understand? But before I get too deep into the methods behind this, I want to mention that it's not about getting it perfect and it's not about forcing an answer. It's about learning how your body and your intuition naturally respond and beginning to build trust with that. The first method I want to share with you is something that's often referred to as the human pendulum. And I first learned this probably 10 years ago, and I have used it countless times through the years. We'll be walking through it together shortly, but first I want to give you a quick overview of what it is and how it works. So, the idea is that you're using your body as a pendulum that will sway in a yes or a no pattern. So you'll ask a yes or no question, and your body will naturally move in one direction for a yes, and typically it's the opposite direction for a no. A lot of people will notice that their yes, their body sways forward, and their no, their body sways back. But if that's not what happens to you, that's completely normal. Some people, it's reversed, and other people might have a complete different motion altogether. The most important thing is learning how your body responds. So we'll be asking questions, and I always like to start just by asking my body to show me a clear yes and to show me a clear no. So right away, I know what those motions are. And then as I go through and I ask questions, it confirms those. And we're going to start with really simple questions. And when I say simple, I mean things like asking what your name is and asking about clothes that you're wearing. You can ask about the room that you're in, the weather outside, family members or pets. You can ask names, occupations, things that are there's no doubt of if the answer is yes or no. And once you get comfortable with those simple questions, that's when you can begin asking the more not complex because you still want it to be yes or no, but maybe things that you are unsure of and you're looking for guidance. So, if you have time, I would love for you to try this with me right now. If right now you can't, that's completely fine. You can either continue watching the video and I'll give a demonstration, or you can come back later and join this for me to walk you through it for the first few questions. But if you have time, I'd like you to stand up, find a clear space to stand, and we'll begin. Start by standing upright with your feet about shoulder width apart and your arms hanging loosely at your side. You don't want to lock your knees, so just stand comfortably with your body relaxed. And if it feels comfortable, go ahead and close your eyes. Now just take a nice deep breath in to settle and start by asking your body to show you what yes feels like. You might say something like, show me a clear yes. And notice how that felt. Did you feel your body sway? So let's try it one more time. Show me a clear yes. And then I also like to say, return to neutral. Now say, show me a clear no. And once again, notice how your body sways. Did it move the opposite direction as when your body said yes? Or did it do something else? So let's try that again. Show me a clear no. And now return to neutral. Now that you've established what your yes and no feel like, you can begin asking simple yes or no questions. And remember, these are things that you already know the answer to. Like, is my name Jen? Now, most likely, if you're following along, you probably got a no for that. So ask the question again with your own name. And if you happen to also be named Jen, try asking that question with a different name now. Is my name Monica? Let's try another question. Am I sitting right now? And if you're standing with me, that should have been a no. So now try, am I standing right now? And that should have been a yes. You can pause this video if you want to continue asking questions right now and keep getting clarity and see how this feels. Or you can come back later and try more questions. But remember, once you get through asking a bunch of questions that you already know the answer to, then you can start asking things that you're looking to get guidance on or looking to get clarity. Sometimes you're even just looking for confirmation of something that you already know you want to do. And it's a simple way to trust what your body is telling you. So if you tried this and for whatever reason, standing wasn't comfortable for you, maybe you felt a little bit unsteady or like you were going to fall, maybe your leans were very pronounced. And if that's the case and you just don't feel comfortable, that's okay. You don't have to do this one. Because the second method that I'll share is a variation off this one that's called the lean method. And it's doing essentially the same thing where you're using your body as a pendulum, but you're doing it while seated. So you'll sit down and you'll sit upright with a straight back, not totally rigid, but straight back, and your feet on the floor. And same thing, I prefer if you close your eyes, it helps you kind of feel the sensations. But you'll do the exact same thing where you will ask yes or no questions, and your body will have a subtle sway. Now, it's not quite as noticeable because it's just the upper half of your body moving while you're seated. So it's not typically as pronounced, but give it a try if the standing method either just felt a little too unsteady for you, or if you just want to see how the seated version feels. The third method I'll share is very different from the first two because instead of getting a body movement to give you a yes or no, this one is internal. So we'll call this the body response because what happens is that internally you will get a feeling or a sensation somewhere in your body for a yes or a no. And I can't tell you what that feeling will be for you because everyone that I've spoken to who has something like this they've experienced, it's different. I wasn't trained to do this or taught it. I learned it purely by accident. I was doing a training for a modality that just wasn't really clicking or resonating for me. And I wasn't able to get answers like the other people. But what I realized is every time I would ask a yes or no question, I would get these really strong sensations in my head. And I started to realize that for a yes, I felt one thing. And for me, it's down the left side of my head. It's almost like this weight comes down and kind of like pulls in the bottom over here. And it's a yes. And when I get a no, it's like the top of my head almost becomes weightless. It's like balloons are lifting and there's this expansive feeling. And I realized that it wasn't part of this modality I was trying to learn, but this was something I could do all the time. And I started comparing it to doing the human pendulum, and my yeses and nos for both were the same. And that was how I realized that that was just another way my higher self was communicating with me. So, to practice this, I want you to pay attention to the subtle sensations and feelings in your body when you ask the same really simple yes or no questions that you used for the beginning of the human pendulum method. These are things that you already know the answers to. And a lot of people, for a yes, they'll feel a lightness or an openness or calming sensation. And for a no, a lot of people will experience tightness or heaviness or contraction. Now, I already explained my feelings that I get, and you'll see mine are kind of reversed from that. So, the same way that with the human pendulum, you might be backwards to what the norm is, it can be the same with this. But again, it's about recognizing your unique yes and no. And this method is more subtle and it does take practice, but over time, it's really powerful and it will get easier to recognize. And the thing that's great about it is it's a little more versatile in terms of when and where you can use this. Because I'll tell you, I use it sometimes if I'm out shopping and I'm trying to make a decision between something. And could you imagine if I was standing in the middle of an aisle being the human pendulum and having people look at me like, what is this person doing? Which, not to say I haven't done that too, but it's a little more subtle. You can do it and try it in just normal everyday situations, and people won't even know you're doing it. The last method is one that often gets overlooked, and we'll call it the first thought or first feeling. So, this is something that you wouldn't necessarily use for something you already know the answer to, but this is something that you would use if you're looking for some clarity on something or quick guidance. And you think of your yes or no question, and what is the first thought or the first feeling that you get before your brain gets involved, before you start overthinking? A lot of times, that first initial thought, it's often a lot of times you think of this as your gut instinct. What is that gut instinct? What comes to you immediately? And if you then want to go and test it using the other methods and see if you get the same answer, that's a good way to do it. But a lot of times, that very first thought and that very first feeling, it's more accurate than you probably realize it is. And once you start overthinking and questioning and second guessing things, that's where the confusion comes in. But you already knew the answer. As you're practicing these methods, I really want you to remember to have fun with this. It's not meant to be a stressful thing. This is a way of reconnecting with your body and your intuition so that you can recognize and clearly understand the answers and the guidance that you're being given on a daily basis. So don't be hard on yourself when you do this. And some things to keep in mind to make things a little easier is remember not to ask overly complicated or overly emotional questions because those are going to be hard to get a clear answer because your brain is already working in the background. And also, don't try to force an answer. If you ask something and it's not coming through, don't just ask the question over and over and over. Not to say you can't ask it again at a later time or a different day, but if you do that, you're just going to get frustrated and you're going to lose that trust that you've built already. And along with that trust, it's important that if you get a response right away, that you trust it. Because if you don't, then all this work you're doing, as soon as it's coming through, you're just dismissing it. So remember, just keep it simple at first. Simple yes or no questions. Start with things you already know the answer to. And then as you get more comfortable, that's when you start asking the questions where you're really looking for that guidance and that clarity. But give these a try. Come back. Tell me how they work for you. Which ones do you like? Do you gravitate more to one of these than the other? I'm really excited to hear about this because these are things that I love to use every day, and I genuinely do use them every day. So, as always, thank you so much for being here with me today, and I can't wait to hear how these work for you. I'll see you next time.